And hello, everyone. It's Monday afternoon. I'm sorry, I'm so used to my show, I'm getting my days confused. Monday afternoon here, and you have me, Greg, the host of the Con Hour, instead of Amy. She has what I call parenting aggro. Her kids are having a Halloween party, and she's attending that. And this is the start of the Author Talk Shorts, which is leading up to the 12 Days of Page Turners, I believe is what she called it this year. And that's going to be her Christmas special with a bunch of authors that are coming on. And we are starting it out today with Jill Wallace. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And glad to have you here with us. And can you tell us a little bit about your books leading up to the 12 days?
Sure. I'm an author. I started as a screenwriter and had one of a movie was almost made twice from my first book, but you know how that goes. But War Serenade is my first novel, and it's a historical fiction. It is a tome. If you like thick books, this is it.
Yes.
It was inspired actually by a true story of a friend of the family's who was an Italian prisoner of war. And he was shot down, of course, by the Allies and was put into a prisoner of war camp in South Africa. And he was, in his Italian life, before Mussolini pushed him into the Air Force, was quite a rising star in the opera. And so he crashes and he lands in North Africa and he's shipped to South Africa into a POW camp, and he's lost his voice. He has no desire to live. And it's from the sublime to the ridiculous where he's landed. And he sees a redhead through the barbed wire. And he realizes that if he's to see her again, he has to find his voice and start singing and find a way to see her. Mm-hmm. So they have this very, very treacherous relationship where he steals out of the prisoner of war camp, which is very fortified, to see her. And they manage to have this gorgeous love story. But soon the war will end. And if they're caught, in the interim, she will be tried for treason and he will be shot for breaking out of prison. So they really risk their all to be together. So, as I say, it's inspired largely by a true story. And it was a story my mother used to tell me when I was little. And it trumped all of the princesses. So I figured this was the kind of book that lived with me for too long. I had to write it down, and it became a screenplay. And then from there, I've turned it into a novel.
Now, what got you started into writing? What was your inspiration into the writing?
You know, I've always loved writing. My parents were very literarily minded. It's a hard word to say, hard sentence. My dad was a cryptic crossword puzzle fundi. He could, a pundit, he could do a crossword puzzle in a cryptic crossword in about 15 minutes. And I wished he lived long enough for me to learn from him, because he loved the English language, and he refused to frame. When I was little, I was about 6 years old, and he said, until I spoke English properly, I won an elocution competition, and I was 6, and he said, until I learned to speak English properly, those would never be framed. They were never framed. I don't even know where they are. And my mom wrote poetry. She wrote really good poetry. So I kind of came from a word-loving family. And this book, War Serenade, their story really resonated with me. It's so tiny, and I always saw it in moving parts. So my first, when eventually life calmed down to the point where I wanted to get words on paper, I learned my craft, screenwriting, and then went to pitch in LA. As a con specialist, you'll know that That's pretty scary stuff. And I went a couple of years and sold the book at the option. And then my producer died just before Christmas. He had attached a director, and he had 3 contacts from the AFI who were interested in financing, and he died and he left us. So it was a real shocker. And then it was sold again, the option, to a South African company who were interested, but it was never made. And so that's War Serenade. And then my friend actually said, to hell with them, write a book. And I said, what, a book? And she said, yeah, you can actually let them think in a book. You can't do that in a script. So
it's very true.
So anyway, that was how that evolved. And my latest book is called Zebra, and pronounced any way you like, but we say zebra, you say zebra. And this is inspired by my husband's life. He had a really cool, interesting life. He grew up in the mountains of South Africa called the Drakensberg Mountains. His parents owned a hotel, family hotel, very remote. And his best friend in the world was a little Zulu teenager. Well, he was a preteen, and Ethel was a young guy. And he taught him everything he could ever wish to know about the Zulu culture. And it was a beautiful relationship that they had. And he was put in charge of my husband to teach him the ways of the wild, because it was a very treacherous environment. And the two became best friends. So this is, we then took the story. My husband also was in the Bush War for many, many years. South Africa was very turbulent in those years. We were always fighting somebody on our borders. And our boys used to have to go to the border every year as soon as they matriculated. And Ethel, my husband, found himself in a very difficult situation where he was the only one who spoke Zulu. And when the brass found out about it, they exploited that to the nth degree. And he ended up serving way too much time in the military. But this book is about Jock and Papin. Jock is a little white boy. Papin is a Zulu. And they learn from each other's cultures. And society puts this is during the apartheid years in South Africa. So it puts a tremendous amount of pressure on the two boys and their friendship, and eventually they pulled apart. And they meet again a decade later on opposite sides of the battlefield. Papin is a passionate freedom fighter, and Jock is a reluctant soldier. And only one can survive. So it's the story of, I always say, Zebra is the story that you'd want to read if you've ever had a best or most loyal friend, or you've always wanted one, because it's really a story of friendship.
Well, you had told us about your mother telling you the story instead of the princess stories, and your husband doing all this. Let's talk a little bit about doing the research for a nonfiction book. I mean, that's got to be somewhat hard. I mean, you were told the stories, but you still had to do some of the research.
Oh, a tremendous amount. Fortunately, War Serenade was a lot of research, and they're both fiction books, but because I've added a little bit of magic to them. But the research was intense. There was a ton of specifics that need to be gleaned. And I just am so in awe of authors pre the internet and how much research they did. If you think of a Michener or any of those guys who really knew their subject and to the nth degree, and how, imagine how many library trips that took to accrue all that. And then Zebra, actually, I had my resource mostly at my fingertips, because my husband is super clued up on animals and their habitats, and he lived the war. So I cheated a bit there, because I didn't have to do much research, because he was my source. And so it was pretty cool. I've loved doing both, but I have a series at the moment that I'm planning, which is completely different. It's paranormal women's fiction.
Ooh,
So,
paranormal. Good
yeah.
day to talk about paranormal, especially on Halloween.
I know. I know.
When do you expect those to be coming out, or are you
I'll
just
probably
starting them, or?
I'm editing book 1, and I'll probably a rapid release starting mid 2023. I plan a 5-part series, all about 1980s flight attendants from South African Airways who had a dream in the crew rest that changed their lives, and they get together when they're older and try and unravel them and meet their love for the second time around in this life.
That definitely sounds fun. Now, what day are you going to be on the 12 days of page turners?
I'll be on the 11th of December. So I'm
And
excited about that.
definitely, for sure. I know she has a bunch of authors coming on, and you're the day before when all the authors come on to do a little bit of talk about their books. So that's got to be exciting.
Very.
So I believe it can't really discuss it now, but you're going to have a special coming out on the 12 days of page turners, and that's
I
going to be for
am.
Christmas. So people, just want to let you know, you need to watch Author Talk and listen to all these authors, because they are going to be having a bunch of specials coming up, and we definitely look forward to seeing you on that.
I look so forward to it.
But before we go, where can people find you online?
They can find me anywhere on Amazon or anywhere else where they buy their books. But my website is Jill Wallace author at gmail.com. That's JILLWALLACE at gmail.com. Oh, sorry, no, that's my
That's your
email
email.
address. Sorry. It's just jillwallace.com. Sorry, jillwallace.com. And we have a store on there too, but they can learn all about me. Absolutely become a Club Untamed member, which is my readers group. And I do newsletters, and I'd love them to join that. We have all sorts of fun. And so they're so welcome to go to jillwallace.com. Sorry about the snafu. Email me if you like. I'd love to hear from you too.
You might be getting a bunch of emails coming up. You never know.
Well, I love to hear from folks. So, but that's exciting, Greg. Thank you.
Well, like I said, it was nice having you on, and I want to make sure that everybody has a wonderful and safe Halloween today.
Yes.
Or tonight.
Yes.
Whichever you decide to do. We
I'll
do
second.
look forward. Yes. We do look forward to seeing you on December 11th.
Thanks so much.
I hope everyone, again, has a wonderful evening.
Yes.
Until the next broadcast, adios.